Welcome to our webinar on 10 principles of crime prevention. Great to have you all along today, and I'm very grateful for Mark O'Callaghan, who's put the presentation together and giving us his time today and sharing us his many decades of experience. And Mark is from the Police Crime Prevention Academy. Spends a lot of time training officers, etc. But I'm going to hand this over to Mark now to do his presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. There will be a recording circulated, there will be slides circulated. Please put as many comments and views and things in the chat as you can. We'll pick them up later. And yeah, really look forward to your thoughts and a really active debate about how we can tackle crime. Thank you. Mark, over to you.
Lovely. First of all, can I just quickly ascertain, am I coming through nice and clearly to everyone?
All good.
Bit of a thumbs up. Are we okay? Good stuff. Excellent. By the way, just one thing with the comments, obviously don't put anything bad about me, you know, so just to put that in right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Mark O'Callaghan, and as Nigel has said, I'm from an organisation called the Police Crime Prevention Academy, which sounds very, very highfalutin, etc. But the reality is we are just a college. We are a college, we are an Ofsted approved centre, and we run accredited qualifications, which I'll talk very quickly at the end, but accredited qualifications, just like you go into any other college. We do a level 3, level 4, all the way up to level 5 diplomas, but they're based around crime prevention, designing out crime, etc. And it is a little bit of strange when you say the Police Crime Prevention Academy, because we actually train as many non-police staff as we do police staff. So we do loads of local authorities, loads of organisations. Like last year, so am I coming through? Oh yeah, last year I did organisations, I would say from as diverse as Network Rail to the BBC, we provided training for. So that's who I work for. I work for, if you can see it, my little cursor, the Police Crime Prevention Academy, but that is part of a wider initiative called Police Crime Prevention Initiatives, which are really, if we put it into context, they're like the crime prevention wing of the National Police Chiefs Council, and I work for their training side, the Police Crime Prevention Academy. So we're going to look at the 10 principles of crime prevention, and here they are in order. So there we go, nice and simple. Right, now I hope you've enjoyed the seminar, and so we're going to go through these principle by principle at a time, but what I want to do is to try and make it relevant to you. Prior to joining the academy, I was a police designing out crime officer and crime prevention officer in the Met Police. And I had to deal, obviously, as a result of that, an awful lot of issues. And a lot of the photos, you know, I've taken on from estates and places that I have come across. And hopefully they're going to replicate some of the issues that you get on a day-to-day basis. That's what I really want to do. I want to try and replicate the issues that you're dealing with, and then we can have a load of conversation, a load of chat, etc., etc., hopefully at the end. And also I do want to show you going forward people who you may be able to contact yourselves, who would, if you are facing some issues, for advice, etc., going forward. So like I say, those are the 10 principles, and when I do this training to other organisations, police officers, etc., I literally say everything they do in a prevention capacity will be based upon one of these principles. Everything they can do. And when they're considering if they have a problem or if they have an issue, when they are considering working in partnership with people like yourselves, etc., going forward, in their answers, in respect of their responses, the more of these principles they can get into their responses, the bigger impact they're going to have on it. the bigger impact they're going to have. So let's go forward and let's just have a look at them one at a time. So the first one is straightforward target hardening. Now, you get good examples of target hardening and you get very poor examples of target hardening. And we do see a lot of poor examples of target hardening. The picture at the top here, you can see that they're not just saying that the padlock they are using has been tested and certified there by an organization called Soul Secure. So the product that they're using, because it's gone through that testing process, we know it's going to perform as we expect. When target hardening isn't taken into account, or when the building does not take that into account, we can tend to get very poor examples, and we tend to find that you get examples of where retrofit measures have to take place. I consider this to be a very poor example of target hardening, and yet you do see this. This is a picture I took on an estate, a tower block type scenario, and you do see examples like this, because to me, I know now that there are modern systems, modern door systems, etc., which means you don't need that to be in place, because we're looking also fire. It's not just about the security of a venue. It's about security working in conjunction with other aspects, such as fire egress, etc. And I look at that and I think, what happens if there would be a fire and the person needed to get out quickly? But you do see this, I think you'll all have examples where you do see this is quite common when you go around some housing estates, etc. So there we go as another example, the bin storage, another example of poor target hardening. We have, and I look at this is another picture. So you've got the bin stores there, but just looking at the bin store door there, you can see it is just on two small hinges. I don't think that is a tested and certified product. I don't. You can get the big bins here. Now, I don't know what your bin collection is, but when they come and collect my wheelie bins, we've all got to go out and work out which bin belongs to which, because they're not carefully placed back outside my house, should I say. But you can see you've got these massive, great big bins here, and they're going to be going bang, bang when they're hitting those doors, and it's that repeated performance. And we can see what's happened. The door has come off the hinges. They've not been tested and certified to a standard, so that performance testing, I don't think, has taken place here. And it means that all these bins now are all open. Potentially you're going to get fly tipping, and in this area we did get a lot of fly tipping. But what concerns me here, I'm guessing the blue bins here, and you people will probably know this far better than me, are recycling. I'm guessing it does have that look. And the issue with recycling, and I think this is a particular issue, we tend to put, because of deliveries, etc., more flammable material into bins now than probably we've ever done in the past. All the cardboard, etc. So that means potentially the risk of fire, or somebody coming along and just for the sheer nastiness of it in some respects, setting fire to one of those bins, especially here, if it's underneath the balcony of a flat, can cause serious issues. And that is because you can see the breakdown in the target hardening, the security of those bin store doors. And again, another example of it here, where a bin has been set on fire, and you can see how it's impacted upon. And that storage area there for the bins isn't suitable. It's not suitable for the purposes it was intended for. You can see that the fire is caught there. And again, another example of poor target hardening, where locks have been damaged and rather than being replaced, have just been taped over, so that door is now insecure. That door to the communal area of a block of flats, which will include things like the rear stairwells. I don't know if you have, but certainly I've come across on many estates where you get some quite serious activity, especially in respect of drugs, etc., in seems to be a lot of occurring in stairwells of blocks of flats, and this type of situation where you've got poor target hardening, especially on those communal doors, and contributes to that. So the next one is target removal. So target hardening is the one thing I would say, actually, I'm just going to go back, because the one thing I'm going to say about target hardening, it's very, very important, and nowadays you can do that relatively simpler, or should I say the concept of it is relatively simple because the products are there. But the target hardening should fit in with the environment. I don't want to see places which mean that you've got to have bars across windows and doors. You don't need that anymore if you're using the correct materials and you're using the correct systems to go forward within that environment. And I always give my house. I live in a semi-detached house, but because of who I am, etc., and my role, it would be very, very embarrassing for me if someone was easily be able to get into my house. So you would walk past my house and you'd probably just turn around and say, no, it's a nice house. It's not like a mansion. It's only a 3-bedroom semi. But when you say that, but the reality is, the doors, the windows, etc., that I have on my house make it quite hard for that easy intrusion into that space. And this example is a very, very poor one, where it did have some form of access control on the doorset. That's failed, and all I've done is just taped over it, so now that's become insecure. Now, target removal, generally those are things like, if this was your home, things like not leaving things on show, like car keys, etc., or valuable items on show, etc., where they can become targets. The type of thing that you see quite regularly, where valuable items of property are left on show unattended, and an issue tends to take place. But certainly in your context, we have this. And this again is becoming very, very common. We know that bicycle theft is increasing dramatically across the country, actually, because actually nowadays it tends to be that the actual pedal cycles that people are using, because of cycle to work schemes, etc., tend to be more valuable. And where you've got that valuable, it tends to be it creates a potential target. And also, it's not just the bike, and this is something to bear in mind. It's not just the bike people are targeting, because actually, yes, even if they can't get to the whole bike because, say, the wheels locked, etc., onto a thing, they may just take the frame, etc., because it means that they can sell the parts on. But you can see here, we have it here, a cycle storage unit, and I'm sure some of you have these on your or places where you work, which takes the target away. The target is now being removed. It's not visible. It's securely stored in this type of unit. That out of sight, out of mind. The reality is, are you going to target something like this when the reality is there'll be more suitable targets elsewhere? And I do wish to stress this as well. You can only be responsible for the areas that you're responsible in. You can't be responsible for everywhere, and that's an important factor. And again, removing the means to commit crime are going to be moving on to this. And again, I put the bin stores there. Now, this seems to be a better type bin store because it's secured. So we've got a secure bin storage area there, not just open, not just easily accessible. So potentially you've removed that means of people being able to commit crime. But other more general aspects, and you will see this all the time, is things like this, where people put their bins, etc., very, very common, outside their fence line, which allows for an easy climbing aid onto the bin, over the wall and into the back garden. And you also get, again, people leaving tools, etc. But as far as the bin store, like I say, I think that's a good example where it's all secured, all locked away, not easily accessible, except via a controlled entry method. here we go. There's a bin store which has the ability to be locked, and we can see it has the ability to be locked down, but it's wide open. Now, at the end of the day, people say, designing out crime officers. I was a former designing out crime officer. We spent a lot of time trying to work around things like bin storage areas, because they can be just these trigger points. You can end up having issues around them. And like you say, certainly it'd be interesting to see the number of calls for bin fires, especially in the end of October, that last week of October, first week of November. It'd be interesting to see if there's a spike of calls in relation to that. But what we've got here, by that insecure, etc., bin storage area, is we've created a potential risk rather than mitigated against that risk. And again, like you see here, this area does have the potential to be locked down and secured. So again, it's something to bear. What we have a secure bin store there, but because it's unlocked, it's created a potential risk rather than mitigated against it. Again, and here, one thing I like about this, we do see these areas potentially when we talk about on estates used for antisocial behaviour, etc., on the estates where you have these. But positioning, when we talk about removing the means to commit crime, it's very easy for people to say, oh, if we get antisocial behaviour around that area, we'll just remove the bench. But benches serve a purpose. And we shouldn't just be removing benches. So really it's thinking about the careful, a lot of the time it's regarding the positioning of aspects like this rather than their complete removal. It might be that we need to position them in a different area which removes or potentially reduces the potential for antisocial type behaviour to take place around these areas. Now, reducing the payoff, and I do want to talk to you a little bit about this, because before, reducing the payoff was all around property marking. And there's a whole range of property marking substances, solutions. You get the forensic marking solutions now that are out there on the market. But I want to talk to you a bit, to flip this on its head a little bit and discuss this. I don't know the areas where you're working. I don't know, like say, the locations where you're working. But I'm going to talk to you about what we call shrines. Now, unfortunately, towards the end of my career in London, we were seeing this increase in, I suppose you say, serious youth violence. We had a number of instances of gang-related stabbings, stroke, murders, etc. I'm not going to go in because you watch the news, you're going to be aware of it. Now, what happens, what I mean by shrines is this, is that if a shrine takes place to somebody, obviously, you've got to find out, and this is what I'm telling our police colleagues, we've got to find out of what this shrine is about. We don't touch it, we don't remove it off our own things. We've got to find out, first of all, why is it there? But if it's a gang-related issue, if it's that type of shrine, and we have seen them in the past, I don't have to tell you, potentially there may be that potential for crime and disorder to be generated around that area. Particularly if, say, a rival group or people come on into that area to try and desecrate something like that. So your teams, and I know a lot of you may have estate teams, antisocial behaviour teams, etc., but people who work on those estates, if you come across this, we would ask you to contact your neighbourhood policing unit as soon as possible. Don't touch it yourself, don't remove it, because what we say is that for that type of offence, there's going to be a senior investigating officer, and a family liaison officer will be attached to that family. What they can do then is start working with that family so that after an agreed period of time, it can be removed from that area in a in a respectful manner to a place more appropriate for that act of remembrance to take place. Maybe the family's home, or maybe the crematorium. You know what I mean? Just the cemetery, crematorium, etc. But somewhere. But what I'm saying is, don't just walk past it. Find out why it's there for, etc. If you could do us a huge favour, and if you do come across one like this, and you feel like it may generate potential crime or ASB issues in those areas, please contact your local neighbourhood teams, and that type of conversation can take place. And what we're doing then is trying to reduce that emotional means, that emotional aspect to it, because it's a very delicate area. But by having those conversations and by working with the family, I don't know, you may have come across situations like this in the past yourselves on the areas where you've worked, which has caused serious issues. So like I say, at least by informing your neighbourhood teams, your neighbourhood police officers, they can contact their supervisors to liaise with the senior investigating officer and the family liaison officer to work with the family going forward around it. But what we do say is, we don't expect anyone themselves to pick that up and take it away themselves. And then we're going to move on to this. Now, this is an interesting one for yourselves, access control, because I feel access control is paramount across the board. It's paramount in relation to things such as bin storage units. It's paramount in relation to bicycle storage units. It's paramount in relation to your communal door areas and the communal space afterwards. Now, just some very, very common features. Obviously, where you have an access control system like a fob system, as we see here on the top left-hand corner, which is very, very common in a lot of modern housing estates, we would recommend that system is both encrypted, because if it's not encrypted, I can take those fobs down to any Timpson's shoe shop or things like that, or key cutters, and say, can you give me 3 of these, please? And they'll just give you 3 fobs. They'll give you programmer and give you 3 fobs. So it needs to be encrypted, but also it needs to have the ability to data log. And by that means those transactions going through that door need to be logged. And I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. So you know what's taking place within that area. Because the reality is, and I'm speaking from a purely police side, when I was actually out there and working as a neighbourhood officer, if we have let's say a drug dealer who may be actually active in an estate, in a block of flats, etc., although we may get intelligence around that, there will be a reluctance for people actually to give formal, because there's maybe a potential fear of reprisals, etc. But these systems here, so yes, if I live there and I just fob it, yeah, it'll show me that I've come through the door. But also, if I press for flat 10 and flat 10 lets me in through the door, it logs that as well. And this is quite common now, is data logging in modern access control systems. So, but if I am a drug dealer living at flat 10 and I've got information around that somebody's active, then by pulling that log, potentially, I can see, oh yeah, flat 10 has let 20 people in the last hour. Now, I'm sure for people like yourselves who are estate managers, you'd want to know that anyway, because by that continuous coming and going, it creates a potential risk in that area. The other things are the fire brigade drop key switches. I think one of the most misused bits of equipment that I've ever seen. I don't have to tell you about them. An awful lot of people, the standard drop key. They have the standard drop key, and in effect, as you know, when you put the key into the drop key switch, it cuts the power to the communal door, so you can just get through it. Yeah. And again, the reason why you have an access control communal door is for a reason. It's to control that access to and from the location. And it's things like this which potentially compromise it. Now, I can only speak to the housing associations in London, unfortunately, but it's something that other ones may potentially want to replicate themselves, because we worked very, very closely with the London Fire Brigade and their partner security organisation, which is an organisation called Girder Security, to produce a secure cover for that drop key, which is accessed by the patented key which the fire brigade hold. So basically what we're doing, we've developed a situation where we can protect that drop key from being abused. Now, the one thing I do wish to state to you is these as well. Again, I call these are the green emergency brake glass, or the devil's button, as I refer to these, because they are constantly being misused, and I'm sure you have examples of that. They are generally based around communal doors into estates, into blocks of flats, etc. And the thing is, though, half the time when people complain that the door's not locking properly, or the door's broken, it isn't. It's because these have been pressed. Now, when these are pressed, you usually get two yellow lines appear. And the thing is, when you press that, it cuts the power to the door. And generally, that door is now insecure until someone comes along with a little plastic reset key and resets it. And the one thing I did some work with, I don't know if we've got representatives from Tower Hamlets Homes here, but gosh, it must be over a year ago now. I did work with with Tower Hamlets, and they had their own neighbourhood estate teams who used to patrol the area, used to patrol their estates, and maybe some of you have got those as well. And if you do, the one thing I've said to them, I said, do your people, do they go into the blocks and everything? Oh yeah, they do that every day, Mark. I said, yeah. I said, well, make sure each of them has a little plastic reset key. If they come across this, they need to check those in every block. If they come across one that's being pressed, reset it. Longer term, if they are being misused, you can get these plastic covers to go over the top of that and rip seals, etc., which is to do. But it's all I'm trying to say here is that it's little things like this, break glasses, drop keys, which can undermine any secure area that you're trying to put in place. And it's just to be aware of it. And again, what happens when you don't have good access control? There we go. And this actually is into an area. This picture was taken in an area of an underground car park in an estate where the access control had failed onto that car park area. So basically it just became a complete rubbish tip. And look at the potential for fire there. Look at the potential for fire in that area as well. And this is what happens when you do have that breakdown. And I'm sure, again, you've seen these open stairwells, etc., or these open accesses to estates that you've seen. And you can get a tendency of antisocial and criminal behaviour taking place on stairwells. I joined the Met Police, gosh, back in 1988. Gosh, well, it is a long time ago, obviously. But the first call I ever got called to, and it sticks in my mind, I'm not going to say the location, but I do remember the location. But the first call I ever dealt with was somebody taking drugs on the stairwell of a block of flats. Yeah, and because of this ease of access to those locations. And then we're going to come on to a good bit of surveillance. Really important, actually. Like I said, sometimes you find that the areas in locations which are subject to crime, antisocial behaviour, tend to be tucked away, tend to be out of sight. Nobody overlooking you, nobody can see you. Nobody can then see you and potentially make that call. It's obvious on housing, the large windows that are promoting that casual supervision, things that encourage interaction between neighbours, good lighting, etc., low landscaping, maximising that surveillance into the area. But where you don't get it, you can see the potential issues. You can see the issues of, there was a research done with a number of convicted burglars, where they showed them a load of imagery of houses that they would potentially target, houses that they wouldn't potentially target. And I'm not exaggerating here when I say the houses that they would target all the time tended to have poor natural surveillance to them. Now, informal surveillance, yeah, I mean, this is your classic example of the lots of movement of pedestrians walking up and down, your neighbourhood watch areas, all that type of thing that we would really strive to encourage. Because again, neighbourhood watch isn't just people, looking out, etc. But it's about that interaction between people in that community, people getting to know each other. And when people getting to know each other, when people know each other, it becomes personal, isn't it? So it's what's that person doing outside Tony's house, not what's that person doing outside somebody's house who I don't know and therefore tend not to bother about. So the more interaction in these watch areas, the more things like that the more we can promote that informal surveillance, the better. And then we have our formal surveillance, the CCTV. And certainly, and I'd be interested to have a little talk to you about this at the end, actually, because certainly now, obviously, with the advent of technology, etc., formal surveillance now, and I'm thinking about the areas what you're doing now, a lot of it is with the video doorbell. The video doorbell is a CCTV camera and a recording device, actually, in some respects. And I've said, and I give this advice all the time. Look, general data protection regulations, which govern the use of CCTV under the Information Commissioner's Office. Yeah. Yes, there is a domestic exemption. So if that CCTV is only looking at your own garden and etc., fine. When it starts going into the public space, you've got to be careful, because the public space CCTV is governed by a different set of regulations. Now, look, I'm sure the Information Commissioner's Office is not going to be bothered if it just takes a little bit of your road where your car's parked, etc. But looking down entire streets, especially if it's also overlooking neighbouring properties through their windows and things like that, that should really be, that's something, unless you've got that person's permission, you've got to be careful about that. And I'm sure I'd be interested to, and that's why I've always said a lot of the time with video doorbells, it's about how you set them up. Most of the times now you're able to blank areas off on them. So again, what I'm saying is this formal surveillance capacity now is come within the remit virtually on the budgets of the vast majority of people, but it needs to be carefully considered and used correctly. And again, this is issues where you get lack of formal surveillance. So areas like this, we've got big gable end walls, nobody really looking, it just lends itself to that congregation of people hanging around areas, etc. And again, this takes it to another height, where we've got lack of any surveillance at all, coupled by the fact that they have then put a wall and a great big hedge up so I can potentially get onto the wall and then climb onto the balcony without being seen. So things such as that, surveillance, the maximisation of surveillance is really important. And again, look what we've got here, the fly tipping, etc., tucked around the corner there, big gable end wall, nobody can see, big hedging, everything like that, bang, used as a dumping ground. And you do see this all the time as you walk around. Environmental design. Now, this is obviously your remit of your designing out crime officers a lot of the time, and they work with awful lot. I used to work an awful lot with housing providers, with local authorities, etc., with developers around big projects, etc. Because if we can get the environmental design correct within the actual design stage, everything that we've talked about is taken into consideration and actually put into place in the built environment. Where you don't have it, we tend to get things like this, where people don't feel secure in their locations. What you can find is that they will try to introduce measures on their own to make them feel safer. So this is where you get things like this taking place and this taking place. I'll tell you what's a good example of this as well, and I'm sure some of you have seen this. Blocks of flats, the old type of flats, the old type of housing stock, where you had external walkways going all the way along. You know, you come up the stairwell and then you walk out, and then you had the doors going off the blocks. What happens? You'll see this. People will put plant pots and things like that outside of the door. And that's to give them what it's called a degree of their own space, a safe area outside it. The problem is when these walkways start to get full of plant pots and things like that, fire brigade and fire egress becomes an issue. So that's why if you take it into account in the design stage, you can mitigate against an awful lot of the impacts going forward. And again, planters and things like that tend to, this is just a picture of one I took, and planters seem, why wouldn't we want a planter, etc. You've got to be very careful with planters, where they're located, where they are, because certainly it's all going to be dependent upon the potential risks that you're trying to mitigate. And I'm speaking from an officer's point of view, and I do accept that. I'm speaking from a police officer's perspective, a former police officer's perspective. But my advice when I talk to people about planters, it's not just the planter, it's the type of plants in it. I want to be able to walk down an area, and if I look into that planter, I want to be able to see if any weapons have been hidden in it, or whether any drugs being stashed, etc., etc. But also the other issue with planters is things like this. They require those ongoing management and maintenance. And when you don't have that, you get situations like this taking place, which really, really brings down an area and tends to make it look like the area is uncared for. So a bit of rule setting, etc. Now, I do bring this picture up because you do see this around a lot. The no ball game signs and things like that. You may have a completely different reason for having, as if you have them, you might not have them, by the way. But you do see these around a lot. I see these around when I walk around estates, no ball games or no cycling or whatever it is type signs. And I can understand it. But the way I look at it with when we talk about these type of prohibitive signs, such as no ball games, what is your response if people do that anyway? So they see the signs and they think, now I'm going to play football. What is your response to that? And I say to some people that if you don't have an effective response to that, perhaps try and do it in a different way. So perhaps if you don't want people to play ball games, maybe you let the grass grow in the middle a little longer and trim around the hedge. Do you see what I mean? I'm just saying it's you. If you're saying to people don't do this, and they do it, what's the response then to that? What is your actions going to be? And that's why I think, again, I hope I'm stressing this correctly, but what we want to see is just a little bit of consideration about where these things should be, where they shouldn't be. Are they going to be effective or not? Are they not going to be effective in those particular areas? And then we get increasing the chances of being caught. Now, look, you've got all your forensic markings. You know what I think increases the chances of being caught? Really? And I'm sure you've got them. I'm sure some of the people here, you have this, the estate teams. Like when I was saying to Tower Hamlet Homes, they have their estate teams, they have their people walking out. Those people will go out, they'll speak at the members of the community. You may have wardens, estate wardens, but they're speaking to those members of the community. They are that visible presence. You should also be speaking to your local police community support officers as well. That more interaction that you get increases the chances of those people are undertaking that criminal activity or that antisocial behaviour activity increases the chances of people being caught. And then we've got harm deflection of offenders. This is a final one. Those type of initiatives which are looking at basically, interacting with the potential offenders to put them on a different path. Things like, the Princess Trust, Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. There's loads of adult education programs. You've got your own, maybe you've got your own youth clubs or community centres or things such as that, which offers activities to people as well. It's all those type of activities that you're looking, especially with young people, all those type of activities that you're looking to deflect them away from potentially antisocial behaviour or crime. And there are some fantastic schemes out there, and and the actual people who are running these schemes deserve full credit for them, because it can be quite challenging work, but it's also incredibly rewarding work as well. So moving forward, I just want that's the principles of crime prevention. Now, before I go on to the next little bit, is there any questions? Have you come across any questions, Nigel, around what we've been talking about?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. There was one just at the start, which probably not directly related to the principles, about conflict resolution. Do you provide training on that?
Conflict resolution, no. Not specifically on conflict resolution. That is one of the areas where we don't provide. Our training really is based around, in effect, it's the built and the planned environment. So we will be looking at, like I say, crime prevention courses, standard crime prevention courses, designing out crime courses and problem solving courses, and also in relation to, we do specific courses in relation to terrorism, prevention of extremism, terrorism, etc., etc. Conflict resolution, there are other training providers who will provide better, in some respects, a better product than us on that. That is not an area that we cover.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. There was one around carports. Carports actually under, beneath dwellings without doors.
Yes.
Your views on that as a potential risk?
Carports beneath dwellings. So you've got I see what you mean. So you've got the house. You've got the little. We don't like. Well, look. When I say we don't like carports, we don't, because the thing is, if you've got if it's part of an let's say a house which has got the garage attached to it, so the garage is integral to the house, that's fine. You can deal with the actual security of the garage doors. You can deal with any security of any door which leads from the garage to the house. The issue that you've got with carports a lot of the time tends to be that the car gets parked in them, and the actual surveillance in those areas is very, very poor. So when you've got a car parked at the front of your house, on the drive, etc., you've got an awful lot of surveillance generally to that area. When it's tucked away in a carport at the side of the house, that surveillance starts to get reduced quite a lot. And if I go into that carport area, very, very hard to spot me. Very, very hard to spot me. So we tend to stay away from, or tend to advise against that carport, to say you either have a proper garage or you actually have parking to the front of the house, etc., etc., in a dedicated parking spot, etc., to the front of the house.
Yeah, but that's all we have there at the moment. So please.
One thing continue. I would ask people though is that the actual issues that we've talked about there, are those the type of things that people are coming across regularly?
It's certainly look common from my experience, Mark.
Yeah, lovely. So
anyway.
Hopefully that's something that. Also, we've got a hand up there. I don't know. Is it TL? I don't know if TL.
Tracy.
Hello, it's Tracy. Hi.
Hiya, Tracy.
Hi. I'm getting lots of issues on my patch where we do have an awful lot of where the carports you just mentioned, where they're underneath coach houses. So to me, that's an increased stress straight away. And because the carports are so small, and nowadays cars are getting bigger, so they're not even being used. So people are putting furniture in there. So that's another task in itself, is obviously to try and stop people from putting furniture in there, because that's another fire risk. We're getting lots of reports of like children hanging around. I think there has been a couple of small fires started before I went on that patch. So it does concern me a lot where they've got no garage doors. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it just seems as if it sort of encourages, it's hidden away, isn't it? They can, you know, kids can go in there, and it just seems a potential
exactly
like
right.
arson risk, doesn't it?
But it's exactly right, and the thing is, you are totally right, and that's why, you know, if we were doing a newer development, we wouldn't have that. We wouldn't have, because of exactly what you've just said. Exactly what you have just said. It's a very, very, very good point. And you
Our
do
newer
see
developments
this.
still have them. We're still building them like that on the brand new developments without garage doors.
That's interesting, actually, because and well, actually, it does lead us on to this. Actually, if I may just come on to this, because it does lead on to it perfectly, and that's secured by design. National Police Chiefs Council's approved crime prevention initiative. Now, when I was designing out crime officer, I can only speak for London. It was very, very common when the planning officers sent me details of developments to me to actually, that I would be requesting a secured by design condition placed upon that development. And we used to have very, very good relationships with our local planning departments. And yeah, an awful lot of times, invariably, we would get those conditions placed upon those developments going forward. So if you're not aware of secured by design, I would just like to hopefully play you this, just to give you an impact. Now, this is one of these, I'll explain it later, but this is an estate, a regeneration project that was undertaken on a huge estate. And really, just that question that Tracy came up there, that things are still being built. This is why I think going forward, secured by design, really, if you stick to the principles of secured by design, you'll find that those issues tend to be mitigated against.
Now, criminal behaviour on housing estates is of ongoing concern to police and is particularly worrying for vulnerable residents. Secured by Design is working with police forces, the construction industry and local authorities throughout the UK to design out crime using clever layout and landscaping and police-accredited products like doors, windows and locks. Nick Thatcher has more.
It was very run down. The buildings didn't look very nice, and obviously now we've got the new regeneration, and it's a huge transformation. Yeah, it's a place where you want to live now.
Sylvia and her family are enjoying life in their new home on Elephant Park, the Lend-Lease development in central London. It's one of the UK's largest regeneration projects, and it's been planned and constructed to include crime prevention measures from Secured by Design, the national police initiative to improve the environment for people to live in and to set standards for physical security.
We worked on the project from the very beginning.
Lynn Poole is a dedicated Secured by Design Met police officer, and she showed me how the estate is being transformed.
Lynn, it's very different to how it used to look.
Yeah, it definitely is. The landscaping is a lot better now. It's got clear sight lines through. The lighting as well, it's so much brighter at night. And you've got the passive surveillance. Everyone can look out from their lounge windows and look down and see what's going on in the street. And there's no recesses, nowhere for the criminals to hide. And it's not just the external environment we're talking about, it's also the physical security of the building, which is the Secured by Design police preferred specification for the door sets and window sets. Because of the way they're manufactured, they're safer, they're more secure, and so they last longer.
Getting Secured by Design involved from the onset has been critical to the success of Elephant Park, ensuring that the master plan layouts are inherently safe and will provide great secure streets and public spaces as well as homes for our customers. Having those officers involved with the design teams from those early stages avoided abortive work, ensured we reduced our costs, and more importantly, it will leave a legacy of a place which is truly safe for the years to come.
And independent academic research of Secured by Design has found that SPD new build properties are up to 75% less likely to experience a burglary than comparable non-SPD properties, with refurbishments up to 63% less likely to be burgled.
We also wanted to find out what burglars actually think about secure by design, so we conducted interviews with 22 prolific burglars currently serving a sentence in prison, and we showed them a series of images of houses and asked them what they thought about those houses. So would they burgle that house or would they not burgle that house? And what they told us confirmed that the principles of secure by design are effective in deterring burglars.
And it's not just residential new build like this that Secured by Design provides guidance for. It also deals with everything from refurbishments to commercial properties, schools to hospitals, even big sporting venues, right across the UK. SBD services are self-funded and work at no cost to the public purse. So clearly, at a time of shrinking police budgets, having a dedicated designing out crime officer who can work with architects, developers and builders brings real benefits.
We know we're policing in times of austerity. We know that if we can prevent crime from happening in the first instance, it frees up capacity, as well as all the heartache that that brings to a victim. If through Secure by Design we can prevent this stuff happening, then why wouldn't we do it? And that's why it's so important that we do have that network of trained and dedicated people who can do this job well.
Yeah, I'm happy in my new home. I feel very safe at nights and daytime. Don't feel I need to worry about any break-ins. All the windows have got double locks and the door's got, you know, an extra security lock. The balconies are really high, no one can get over. So yeah, I feel really safe here.
The principles and guidance from Secured by Design can help people feel safer and make communities more cohesive, as well as support police forces to better manage their resources. A definite win-win in the fight against crime.
Okay. The reason why I brought that up, and it's really, it just lends itself to what Tracy was talking about there. Lynn Poole, that the lady on that video, actually was a slight thing. Lynn is what's called a Secured by Design development officer. I was the designing out crime officer for those first stages of Elephant Park. It's a massive development. It's still ongoing, and I've been retired, gosh, now over 5 years ago, and it's still ongoing. But that was taken, and the thing is, all those things that Tracy talked about when she said, "Oh no, but they're still getting developments built with these carports in," that is something that would have been picked up very, very early. If that came through a designing out crime officer and things such as that, and it was looking at Secured by Design, that it would be an issue that was picked up very, very early. So, and we work with the developers, we work with the architects, work with the developers, work with the local authority housing associations, etc., to ensure that those type of issues, as you can see there, are mitigated against. And the whole, I mean, the previous estate where that was located, and by the way, this is in Elephant and Castle, that's southeast London. I don't know if anyone knows it. Maybe some of your people attending today know this area, but it was quite a challenging area, or some of the places around there were quite challenging. The difference now, I know people who were brought up in that area, and you know, lived on the old estates and things such as that, and they say the transformation has been huge. It's absolutely been huge. But you see there's no bars across people's windows. There's no grills. There's no rolling spikes or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? There's none of that, what people would think of. If you say what is physical security, people, they'll probably think of those rollings. There's none of that. It's just done through make the correct products being used on the estate, and those principles are what we call, so principles called crime prevention through environmental design, been employed on those areas to maximize surveillance, to increase, you know, like I say, we had a lot of things on access control, so people, you know, just didn't have free reign around the entire estate. So everything we've talked about was placed within that area. And actually, I think it looks really, really nice. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was very, very proud of it as part of the thing. What I am going to do now, though, is as a result of that, and as a result of what Tracy said, etc., if you do come across issues, if you're looking at refurbishing, if you're looking at coming across plans, etc., for new housing stock, etc., if I'm going to stop sharing this, because what I do want to make you aware of is this. This is the Secured by Design website. Just go into Google. No problem at all. You come up to Secured by Design. Now, this is what I want to say to you. And if ever you need any advice, by the way, about anything going forward, go to the contact, and it's Designing Out Crime Officer, Finder Doco. And this is the directory for every Designing Out Crime Officer in the country. Yeah. So I don't know, let's have a look at Essex Police, and if anyone's from Essex, I'm just picking one at random. There you go, with the mobile phone numbers, the name, mobile phone numbers, and the generic websites. So if ever you need any advice and things like that about, like you say, if you're doing refurbishment of housing stock, or you've got any new housing stock, anything like that, wherever, in any area where you are, just give them a ring. Send them an email. And a lot of those issues that Tracy talked about there, especially with the carports and other things, and especially in respect to bin storage areas and bike storage areas and things such as that, which can be quite, like I say, target areas where you can literally have those bin storage, bike storage areas can be areas which you have to mitigate against. Yeah, that'll all be dealt with. So like I said, I just wanted to show you that that's how easy it is to contact Designing Out Crime Officer. It's on a public facing website. Just go into contact, find a Design Out Crime Officer, your own local Design Out Crime Officer, send them an email, etc. They'll be more than happy to work with you. And finally, the very, very end bit, I just want to show you, and we'll have a few more questions after this, is this. That's it, with the Crime Prevention Academy. Listen, I do appreciate we've had an hour, we've covered an awful lot of things. But like I say, we train as many non-police officers as we do police officers. The level 5 diploma in crime prevention through designing out crime, half our class generally is made up of people from either local authorities, people like yourselves, housing providers, universities is a big one, because obviously of their sheer size of the estate, and an awful lot of building work takes place there, hospitals. So it really is a multi-agency course. So is the level 4. These are multi-agency disciplines, yeah, and the courses are written for multi-agency participation. If ever you feel that any of you obviously could benefit from and I know I'm giving a little bit of a, like I say, a little bit of a push, but it is important. Like I say, info@crimepreventionacademy.com. Just send an email, and we can work with you and obviously give you all potential costings, etc. going forward. But like I said, we are an approved Ofqual related body. We have an awarding body. It was called ProQual. This is level 3, level 4, level 5, just like if you went to your local college. This is exactly the same. These are assessed pieces of work. I'm one of the assessors, and so a couple of my colleagues. But certainly those level 4 and level 5 awards, we have an awful lot of interest, and we do an awful lot of training for external bodies, etc. In those, for people who want to take that learning a little bit further. Any questions from anyone? Well, let's have a little bit of an overview. Has anyone got any questions about anything we've talked about today?
Yep, feel free to stick your hand up. So just while you're coming up with your questions. No, I was just underline, Mark, what you said there. I think that's really interesting presentation. But just to underline the bit that many of us are working in environments where we don't have the privilege of having our buildings rebuilt, perhaps much as we would like them to be. Moot point. Even from a sustainability point of view, a lot of buildings actually they're choosing to retain them rather than rebuild. But these principles still apply. May not be easy to apply them.
And also, it's very important to say that it's not just the rebuilding that we'll be looking at. Certainly the refurbishment side of it is equally as important. And these principles, well, I'll give you an example of principles. And I've always thought this was funny, but when you talk about that removing the means to commit crime. Now, I'm on about sometimes in larger states, etc., or certainly ones that I know, I do realise it's dependent upon what housing stock, etc., you're dealing with. But certainly in a lot of bigger states, etc., they had bicycle stores contained within inside the actual blocks. And I've always thought, why have they put a sign on the door saying bike store? Everyone who knows, everyone, think about it, everyone who lives in the block knows where the bike store is. So all you're doing by putting a sign on the door saying bike store is to say to any potential person who wants to get in and steal, this is where it is. It's over here, it's got the big sign. That's removing the means to commit crime. I know it's in its most basic form. That is it. It doesn't have to be. A lot of these principles, like I say, management and maintenance does play a big part in this, and I've got to say this. Management and maintenance, without good management and maintenance policies, everything can fall down. So that's something to be aware of. You know, it's like the scenario, isn't it, that you get a broken communal door. I don't have to tell you people about the issues where you've got insecure communal doors, etc., and the potential impact you've got inside those communal areas of a block. But if that communal door isn't then looked at or repaired, if it's taking like months for that to do, it's just going to exacerbate the situation. You know that. And there's always a cost to this. I've always felt there's a cost to this because somebody's going to be going around and cleaning that up. Somebody's got to repair the actual ongoing damage to it. You're all aware, and I'm sure you're all aware of the broken windows theory. And although it is clunky, it is a bit clunky, and you know, some of it. The principle when they say that, you know, if you let those little signs take hold, it'll be repeated and it'll get worse and it'll get worse. And it all comes down, so much of this does. And I'm good, it's to good ongoing management and maintenance policies in those areas. But like we've seen there, particularly those target areas like bin stores and things such as that, you know, you've got to be careful with those because, you know, it sounds like a very simplistic area, but if you don't get those areas right, or if those areas aren't controlled, I don't have to tell you, they can create an awful lot of problems, can't they? They can create an awful lot of problems going forward. I've not done bad for time, have I there? I've done all right. Tracy, you got your hand up.
Sorry, it's me again.
No, don't be silly, go on.
With what I spoke about earlier, so I've got a high-risk area, bin stores and the carport areas. So I'm planning, because I'm quite new housing officer in this area, so there's a lot of work to be done in this particular area. And one of my projects that I want to do going forward is to try and request that these garage doors that we fund them. So it's going to be a bit of a project going forward to sort of reduce and mitigate lots of different things. Yep. Would you or any of your colleagues, I don't know if this is within your working remit, supply any supporting evidence to advocate for my little project?
Tracy, what I would say, Tracy, like I say, is the first port of call, and this is the thing, your first port of call. Which area do you work in, Tracy? Whereabouts in the country are you?
Devon.
Devon. Your first port of call will be the Designing Out Crime Office at Devon and Cornwall Police. And Devon and Cornwall Police have got a really good Designing Out Crime Office. So, you know, go onto the SKU by Design website, go under contact, Devon and Cornwall, find out who your local Designing Out Crime Office, send them an email. I'll tell you what, if it came, you know, when I reckon they'll be all over that. And they'll be able, because what they can give you is a local context as well, which is really more pertinent to you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So get in contact with Devon, and there'll be no issues, by the way. Just send them an email or call them up. Like I say, all the contact details are on the SKU by Design website. So just go under contact at the top when you go into the website, find a doco, Devon and Cornwall Police. All the email addresses and the phone numbers are there, and take it forward.
Brilliant. I've already taken some screenshots. Thank you. It's been
No
so
problem at all.
helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
No
Tracy.
problem
Thanks
at
for
all.
sharing.
Any other questions at all? Well, everyone wants lunch, Nigel. That's what it is. Everyone wants to sound. I do. I know. I do. I'm quite hungry. Has that been
Thank you
all
very
right?
much, Mark. No, that's been brilliant. Thank you for that. Like I say, there's some, even where it's not being rebuilt, you're not even getting regeneration. You're really stuck with some difficult estates. There's some small things we can do to start making a difference. There's some big things as well, but let's make a start to remove those opportunities and the tools and things. Thanks very much, for joining and
Thank you, everyone.
contributions.
Thanks
Brilliant.
for joining, everyone. That's been smashing. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. We will share.
Thanks, Sydney.
Share
That's lovely.
the
Thank you.
resources, and we'll see you next time.
Lovely. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you
Have a
very
lovely
much.
weekend.